Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Lovecast with Jamal podcast. Honestly, I'm very honored and just really thankful to be talking to Amy Scruggs again. Amy was you guys have known, if you're a listener to the podcast, you know that Amy was a previous guest on the show. We had a great time. And first of all, interesting, amazing, just an empowered life that you've lived and are living. And I wanted to have Amy back on the show because Amy was recently, I think just maybe a month ago or so, was a guest on the Dr. Phil show, who I'm a big fan of. I've always been a big fan of Dr. Phil. First of all, love his story and what he's been through and really what he's offering to the world. But the conversation, the topic of that show was something that I'm really passionate about. And I think there's a lot of angles we can take to this. Mm-hmm. And it's a conversation I think really needs to get fleshed out a bit because of what's the post-pandemic world that we're living in. But before we get into all that, Amy, welcome to the show. So honored.
Thank you. I was so excited when you reached back out. I'm like, yes, I will be here anytime. And I have a funny story to share real quick to kind of kick it off with some humor, because when you mentioned being a great fan of Dr. Phil, my parents, my little 84-year-old parents, are adorable, but they are Dr. Phil fanatics. I mean, I think that's all they do all day is sit and watch the reruns and the episodes. And everything, if you talk to my mother, I love you if you're listening to this, but still it's like, well, you know what Dr. Phil says, right? So I love that they have followed him and loved him all these years. So when the producers called me and said, hey, I'd been referred, we're interested in having you on our show, here's the topic, I was like, really? And I found the humor in that because I was like, how do I mention this to mom? Do I tell her? Do I not tell her? Do I just let her be surprised and see me on television? How do I broach this? So I decided I better just tell her when we had the next call, mentioned to her, hey, by the way, Mom, on Monday, I'll be at the studio filming for Dr. Phil. She didn't believe me. She said, wow. Shut up. You don't do that to me, Amy. Don't you joke like that. Don't you play a joke on me like that. This is Dr. Phil we're talking about. I'm like, Mom, I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
I love it.
I will be there. This is really happening. I'll take a photo. Anyways, I just thought it was so funny that he ranked up there so high. She goes, well, this is it. This is amazing. I can't believe you're on this show. I don't care about the Grand Ole Opry, your music, nothing else. This is all that matters now. You've arrived. And I went, well, there you go. There's the approval I've been waiting 50 years for from my mother. And it was achieving Dr. Phil.
That's awesome. I love that.
That's how we kick this off.
I can completely resonate. I think I could hear my dad saying something similar. And my dad would probably say, oh, they must have had a short list or something. Or maybe they didn't, I could hear my dad saying that about me if I something like but no, that's fantastic. First of all, I thought I was really happy that you were on the show because I thought what you brought to the table was absolutely essential to the conversation that I don't know that many people can. Well, obviously, we all have our own experience and perspective we're bringing, but because of the life you've lived, because of what you've went through, I think you're uniquely qualified to speak to this issue. I could really feel that energy from you. Like, this isn't a theory. This is an idea. This is something that you absolutely have. And so that's what makes your message so effective and powerful to what you were speaking about. And the topic of the show, the Dr. Phil show, was quiet quitting.
Yes.
And I want to talk about quiet quitting. Okay. So for the listeners, maybe, people who are listening to this, they may not be completely aware of what this topic is and what the ins and outs of it are, but can you just briefly define in your own understanding what is quiet quitting? It's become a trend post-pandemic.
It's become a trend. I mean, it kind of started on TikTok, and we actually had some of those originators there on the show sitting across from me to counterbalance our different perspectives. But quiet quitting is that movement right now of not wanting to be taken advantage by corporate, which, we can go all different directions with that. And they're arguing, well, hey, I shouldn't have to work extra and I shouldn't have to do all of these things when my pay doesn't increase and our quality of life and inflation and really just such a sad oppression of where our world is today that they're starting this movement to say, hey, I'm going to do the bare minimum to get by. I'm only going to, if you tell me I work from, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and I do this task, then don't ask me to do anything else because you're not paying me to do that. So we can sit on different sides of the fence that I understand our young adults, especially discouraged, feeling like, how am I ever going to get ahead? I'll never be able to afford to buy a home. The capitalism has taken over and there's a discouragement. But on the other side, and we can discuss both sides of this, is still that personal responsibility. And what I tried to bring was saying, hey, and they actually cut this out of editing, but I did say on the show and filming, there are still tools that I use today in everything that I do that came from when I was waiting tables at 20 and supporting my little 2-year-old son. So there are skills that came from jobs that were grueling, times that were painful. Yeah, I was making minimum wage, and minimum wage in 1993 was $4.50 an hour. But what I had to do is go, what do I have to do my best every day to get myself out of this situation? And that was what I was trying to transfer over in this show, was just saying there's still that personal responsibility. I can't change outside circumstances. I can't change the economy. I can't change capitalism or corporate mindset. But if I'm somewhere that I don't want to be, then what tools do I have within me to try to at least make the best out of my life? And that's where I'd like to kick this off and where I was coming with. And I don't know if it totally transcended on the show, because it's definitely created for controversy. And I had the opposers and there was an assumption that came in that I was just maybe a kept woman, or that I just came from money and that I don't have any issues. And in a show like that, I couldn't share, well, no, I've lost my home. My kids and I have been homeless. We've had to get our food from the food banks at different times in the journey. I've had to claw my way back out. I've had jobs that I hate, jobs that I love, but I didn't get an opportunity to say that.
Totally. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So
I kind of tease it up a little bit.
Totally. So the idea of quiet quitting, though, is this idea that, okay, I'm only going to do, and it's almost like the way my perception of it is, it's kind of a defensive posture, right? That says, I am only going to do, in my role as an employee for a company or whatever, I'm only going to do what's in the contract. I'm only going to do what I'm paid to do. So we've all had jobs, right? Where, if you think like an employee, then it's about, okay, what do I have to do? What is in my contract to do? But if you think like an employer, right? Let's say you own the business. It's not really about what you have to do as much as we need to get this job done. And
totally.
We want to make sure it gets done and gets done well. So we've all been in jobs where we're asked to do things that quote unquote aren't specifically a part of the specific job description. So this quiet quitting idea is like, we're not going to tolerate that anymore. Yes. We're going to have clear boundaries, and we're only going to, if our hours are 8 to 5, then don't call me at 5:30.
Right.
I'm not available. Is that?
That's exactly it. And I understand this generation right now needing their boundaries. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I'm a Gen Xer, so I just don't have the same empathy for that, because we've survived how many recessions and the .com boom and, to blow up and all this stuff. But I'm like, listen, it's life. One of the guys on there was complaining because he had to go in on his day off because a coworker called in sick, and he shouldn't have had to do that. But isn't that life? Don't we reach out and help somebody in need? If your coworker was in need, then you do what's right. Those blessings come back to us. We can manifest those blessings coming back to us and say, I'm going to do the right thing and bless him because it's the right thing to do. And at some point that might be me that's sick, and thank God I have great other coworkers that would fill in for me. But that mindset was not visible with this quiet quitting. And at least those that were on the show representing their side of quiet quitting, it was just almost oozing this sadness of selfishness and also hopelessness. And I think that's what broke my heart. They weren't even willing to an inner scope of like, yes, this is hard, but I'm going to give my best and see what I can do. One of the kids on there, I call them kids because I think anybody under 40 is a kid now, but there was one of the kids on there that he said he's a box boy at the grocery store, and you can see this part on the show. And he said, well, but I really want to be an actor. And so why should I have to give my all at this grocery store? It's not my passion. I'm like, but you use that time at your grocery store to be getting into your own best mindset. And what if you use that time that you're boxing and in the storeroom to be practicing your lines or rehearsing in your head or visualizing where you want to be? Because if you actually get the role of your dreams as an actor, it's going to be hard work and long days and more than you expected. It's not going to be easy. So why not take these jobs that aren't easy to practice for what you're trying to get to? Because as any entrepreneur knows, we know it's not easy. The buck stops with me. I work more hours as an entrepreneur than I did as an employee because there's no one else to do it. So those jobs that I was working hard as an employee taught me how to put this kind of work into my business. But there's this disconnect that they weren't getting it and they just got angry.
Totally. And I thought what you said to that aspiring young actor that's working at the grocery store, I thought it was spot on because literally I was like, okay, you're working a job you don't like. Well, what if you acted like this was the greatest job in the world? What if you
be a better actor?
Right. Because this is what you're going to be doing when you're quote unquote getting paid to act. You're going to be in some ways putting yourself in a reality that you're not quote unquote operating in the moment. That's what acting is.
Yes.
The ability to transcend your environment, to be in a different state of mind, a different character, a different location, whatever it is. What a perfect opportunity to do that in a grocery store. Again, it's when people, and I thought that was really powerful, but it's when people don't see their current, and this is where I think people get tripped up here, is when they don't see their current situation as being a part of the process.
Right.
It's when we think, oh, where I want to be is not where I am. And in order for me to get where I want to be, I have to get out of where I am. This is where we're getting, I think, the disconnect.
But then they keep attracting the miserable stuff
they don't want. And I think, so here's a question. And I'm sure you're aware of this, the principle of the law of attraction, right?
Yes.
So can you speak to that a little bit? How does this play into this?
It plays in because if you're thinking I'm miserable and I'm entitled and I have rights and I have ego and I'm only going to do the bare minimum, how are you going to attract that dream job you wish you had? How are you going to, even in this setting with your employer, he doesn't treat me right. Well, and if you keep speaking it to life and you keep pushing in a resistance and giving attitude or saying I'm going to have the bare minimum, guess what? That employer is still not going to treat you right. He's not going to come in tomorrow and go, oh my gosh, you are the best. And I want to honor you and bless you and build you and lift you up. If you put your heart and passion into it, if you realize if I can at least use my own mind and my own positive attitude, my own drive to try to create an opportunity out. And then if you don't get noticed, you're not promoting where you want, start looking for other things, but with that positive mindset, find joy in the pain, find joy in the process, joy in the struggle. Anytime we put negativity on anything, guess what we're going to get back? Totally. One of my favorite mentors, David Meltzer, always tells the story about finding joy in taking out the trash. He said he hated taking out the trash because growing up, he was the one that had to do it at home. All the kids, he was the guy in charge of trash. Then he grew up and had a wife and all daughters. So he's the only one that takes out the trash. And he had this attitude of just like, I hate the trash. And he realized one day, why don't I just turn around and start saying, I love the trash? And he changed it where he would be like, oh, I love it. I get to take out the trash. And he would see a neighbor he's been wanting to see and talk to. Or he would have a creative thought come to his head while he was using that trash taking to think creatively of what he was trying to manifest or want in his own life. And he started getting excited about taking out the trash because something different or magical or purposeful in his life would start taking place during the trash because that's what he was looking for. He was looking for a positive experience taking out the trash. And he started getting positive experiences taking out the trash. That's the mindset we can take into anything that we do to find the positive experience, even for something we don't like.
I love it. I love that. Absolutely. And there's agency that a person may have, right? When you realize, okay, maybe you quote unquote have to, I even like to change the language. You don't have to do anything. I mean, you don't have to take the trash out. You get to take out the trash. Just changing your language in a certain task that you're choosing to do is more reflective of the truth, right? Because the truth is you always have options. And I, as a coach, sometimes I remember so I wrote a book called Living for a Living.
Yes.
In 2019. And we do touch on some of these topics. And, one of the folks that read my book, he misunderstood the message of it. So he came back to me and he goes, well, I liked your book. He said, but it's just not for me. And I said, why not? He goes, well, I can't live for a living. I said, oh, why not? He said, well, because I have to work. I said, what do you mean you have to work? He goes, because I got to pay the bills. I don't have the luxury of living for a living like some people. And he assumed I was coming from this place of,
you just have money coming out anywhere.
Oh, there's money coming out everywhere. And it's just like, yes, this is this life of privilege. He goes, not all of us can live for a living. Yes. I said, oh, okay. I said, so you feel like you're not able to live for a living because you have to work. Is that what you're saying? He goes, that's right. I said, can I challenge you on that just for a moment? He goes, what do you mean? I said, you don't have to work. You don't have to. He goes, what do you mean I don't have to? I said, you don't have to. And he goes, I do have to, because otherwise I can't survive. I can't pay the bills. I said, just think about it for a moment. I just want you to think about this. God forbid, let's just say you go to work today and your boss shows up and they call you into an office and they say, we're so sorry. We have some economic setbacks coming, we have to budget cuts and we're going to have to let you go. I said, what would you do? What would you do? And he goes, well, it's funny you mentioned that because that's actually happening at my company. I think my job is okay, but I know a lot of people that have been let go. So say it happens to you. What would you do?
Right.
He goes, well, I'd do something. I mean, I'd figure something out. He goes, I might have to look for another job. I was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, he might, worst case scenario, I'd get on some public assistance for a while till I got on my feet. I said, okay. I said, so there's options, right? He goes, yeah. So I said, so quit. You quit your job today. Why don't you just go ahead and quit? And he said, and it just, you could tell I said, you have options. You don't have to go to work today. You keep saying you have to work. You don't have to. You have options. You can quit. He goes, well, I don't want to quit. I was like, oh, you don't? That's been missing from this conversation. You don't want to quit. Why don't you want to quit? He said, well, I don't like my job, but one thing I do like about it is it does pay pretty well. I said, oh, so you enjoy the compensation.
You love your job.
What do you get? I said, what does that money do for you? And he's like, well, I mean, it does takes care of my family. It does put food on the table. It does pay. I said, great. Can you feel that? So you're choosing to go to work today because it does compensate you at some level. Even though there's things about the job you don't like, you are choosing. So I'm just saying, you don't have to go to work. Stop the story of I have to is a part of the problem. It's taking you out of the energy of choosing this. If you choose it, then choose it and focus on what you're choosing. Now you're more in alignment with this thing of living for a living, because people who live for a living are choosing how they live.
Yes, exactly. I wish you had been on the show with me, but I tell you, I did get eaten alive. It's interesting. I just feel how sad and without hope so much of our society has today. And so much blame that is out there that we're not looking in to say, but what can I do? I mean, when I lost my home, I lost everything. My kids and I were just blown apart to pieces. I didn't start blaming. What tools do I have? What can I do? Let's see, what do I have and what can I do? Anytime if you have to go fix the sink at your house, you're going to get your toolbox. Well, what tools do I have that I can fix this now? What tools do I need to go get? Because maybe I'm missing a certain size fitting to do this or that. But whenever we need to fix something, don't we always look at what we have? But yet with our lives, we don't. There's this narrative of just blame, and this is what's happened, and this is whose fault it is. Okay, but let's look at your toolbox. What can we do? And that's how I see anything that comes at me. And like you're saying, just living, enjoying. I work every day, but I love what I do. Even when I was still with my jobs, that was what I did. And I loved it. And I found the things that I loved in those things. If the commute was long that day, or I had to do a longer drive, oh, what a great opportunity to reach out and call my mom, or reach family members or friends while I'm making that drive, or just take time to breathe, or listen to music I've been wanting to listen to. There's always something that we can look at to say, how can I make this something that benefits me at this moment? Whether it's taking time to let go of something mentally, emotionally, think through something, come up with creative ideas, voice text ourselves things that we've been forgetting to do. There's so many things that we can do with every hour of the day that makes us feel joyful and complete. And it is a choice, because we can take the same amount of time to worry and stew and fret and blame as well. And what's that going to give us?
Totally. And I love that, because what was the accusation that was brought to you was, oh, you're coming from privilege when you say
oh
this.
Yes
it's free to make a choice in any given moment of what your focus is going to be and what you're going to do. That's totally free. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank or not. You can choose to perceive a situation. You can choose to see a situation as being against you or for you.
Yes,
it's a choice, but how you perceive it is literally free of charge. It's a power we all have.
What even surprised me was just a couple weeks ago, because the show aired in September, and I'm still getting hate emails in my LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. It's surprising how many people are saying I'm so out of touch with reality and I'm just privileged. My favorite comments are the ones that were her poor employees. See, she had time to be at the Dr. Phil show while her employees, she's probably paying bare minimum, are running the business. And I'm like, yeah, my cat looks pretty happy to me. She's employee of the month right now. So I think, I think she's okay. But there was a show that was just, I found on YouTube, because I'm still Googling it to see kind of what's marinating out there, just from the sense of me having perspective to what's taking place out there. Not that I care about the comments, but they break my heart is what they do. But there's a guy that actually has a lot of YouTube followers, YouTube channel, and his entire show is taking other shows and hacking them apart and hacking people apart. So he did a hack piece on this episode of Dr. Phil, and he chooses all different shows. He just happened to choose this, and he would stop the frame and narrate. And he spent 30 minutes doing nothing but hating myself and the other guest that was there to promote work ethic. And it broke my heart. Again, I want to just say, where are you going to be 10 years from now? How is this show that you're doing, tearing people apart, going to benefit you 10 years from now? How is this a long-term plan of success? So you may have a lot of viewers and a lot of followers. I mean, it already has like 250,000 views in the last few weeks. But where is that going to be 10 years ago? How is that setting you up for an abundant life and a joyful life? You're getting a quick moment of fame from doing this hack piece. And that's what I'm noticing.
Yes. And first of all, I'm sorry you're going through that. You're experiencing that, because what you were putting out on the Dr. Phil show, in my opinion, was essential. It was really important. And obviously it's touched a nerve, and there's a lot of blowback from that.
Yes.
But I think your perspective is really important here to say, where is this going to be 10 years from now? And I can speak from experience on that, because it was probably 10 years ago or more. I remember reading a book that I did not like. And I wrote a scathing book review, and I published it on this book because I didn't like it. I thought it had a lot of false information. It was going to affect people negatively. So I wrote this piece. It's customary to let the author, when you're doing a book review, you contact the publisher or the author where the book came from, and give them a chance to read the review and offer feedback. I'm not sure if I did that. I think I kind of vaguely remember thinking about doing it. I don't know if I actually followed through in that. I published it because it was a hot button book at the time. And, I wasn't quite conscious at what was driving me at the time.
You were reactionary in that moment.
And reactionary and why I wanted it to get out there as opposed to just coming to some conclusions and letting it be a teaching tool for me. And even if I disagreed, there was a way to go about it so I put it out there, and it got good following and got a lot of comments, and people thought it was great, and got a lot of kudos for that book review. And then I wrote my own book eventually many years later, and somebody did the exact same thing to me. They wrote a book review and tore it apart.
Ouch.
And put it out there and did not give me an opportunity to respond.
Oh.
They just put it out there, and it got a lot of traction. The book review did, in the circles that I was in that sense, all relative. But I realized in that moment, and again, this isn't like to live in fear, but there's this principle here, in the Bible, it talks about sowing and reaping. Whatever you sow, that you shall also reap. It's a karmic principle of every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Give and it will be given back to you. It's really a part of this law of attraction that
it is.
A lot of folks don't understand the science behind it, the mechanics of it, but the energy you put out is coming back. And you
notice it's woven into all religions.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because it's a universal truth. It can be observed even if we just look at our own life, aside from any religious text, if you just look at your life, and you can see how this is happening. So if I'm feeling like a victim, if I'm feeling like I don't have any opportunity, I'm out of place, people are taking advantage of me, isn't it interesting how that just keeps repeating? That theme just keeps repeating over and over.
And then they just keep blaming and then repeating and then blaming and repeating. And now what?
Totally. So,
and I said on the show, I'm interested to see where those who are choosing quiet quitting or this mindset of living, where they're going to be 10 years from now. And I said that almost like a mama bear, like saying, no, if I can say one thing that helps stop you from this, I'm seeing you 10 years from now. You're going to say, oh, what did I do? Regret is worse than failure.
Totally. And I see this in coaching all the time. I've actually had people who will want to get into coaching. They'll reach out to me, and I'll kind of lay out a framework of how to get started, and they won't do it, even just to get started.
Right.
And then they come back and say, gosh, I think it's just not the right time. When the time is better, then I say, okay, so how will that happen? How will the time get better for you? When will it be a good time? Because what you're saying right now is I'm not worth the investment or the time right now. So that's just going to multiply for you.
Yes.
It's just 10 years, 5 years later, until you're ready to be done with that. It's never going to be the right time for you to step into what life has for you in this moment.
Right.
That's a monumental deal. And I love the spirit which you're communicating, right? As a mother, almost in a sense of like, I know where this is headed for you. 10 years down the road, this is going to reap. You're going to reap it. And including the person who's ripping apart the episode, putting this out on YouTube, like that's going to,
you're going to read this. You're hacking at people. I mean, they were saying horrible things about me and referencing my children. And I mean, it was just, and especially as a woman, how they hacked me up. Well, look at her. I mean, just saying just some pretty foul things. And that was really something to see that is what people, to take the time to write those things. First of all, to think it, let alone write it. And all I did was just go, wow, I'm sorry. I forgive you. And I just send light and love to everybody who's that broken right now, that those are the things that they need to feel and say. And that's it.
Well, and I think what you're experiencing is a snapshot of a wider issue in our country. And that is whenever we have a topic, right? Okay. So the way Dr. Phil show was presenting the topic, and I understand this is television and this is how things work. There's a pro and a con, right? There's a for and against, there's a left and a right, a black and a white. There's this is kind of how things are presented, right? But in my experience, that's not how life actually is. It's not, I know how it's this dualistic, day and night, good and evil kind of thing that gets pitted against each other. My experience is that this is a conversation. And in a conversation, you have multiple perspectives, and one doesn't have to be totally wrong and one doesn't have to be totally right. I look for the nuance and the what is being communicated, and then to say, okay, this belongs in a wider conversation. Now, in the political spectrum, right, when we talk about politics, Republican, Democrat, typically the language, and this is where I think we're missing it as a society, as a nation, that we're actually speaking against each other, as if I'm opposing you, you're opposing me, and we're on opposite sides, as opposed to we have different perspectives of a topic, of an issue, but we're going to bring an angle to this conversation, a needed angle. And what is that angle, and how can we have these come together? So I was in this topic of quiet quitting. I think it's an example. So because we're in such a polarized us versus them kind of culture, you're on the receiving end of that now. Being on the show, you're getting hate mail, you're getting this vitriol. And this is why in politics, which is the political spectrum, we're making really important decisions about lots of things, what to do with our tax dollars, how to govern, how to have a shared society, how to position ourselves in the world. These are really important. That can lead to life or death, even when we think of war, we think of international diplomacy, all these things. But we are destroying the folks that are getting into this world because we're making one person evil and one person good and pitting each other back and forth. It's got to change.
We've lost all mutual respect for variances of opinions.
Totally.
I can not agree with you and still respect and be polite and say, wow, okay, thank you for sharing your side. Thank you for sharing it. I can still receive information. It doesn't mean that I have to take it in as my own truth, but I can respectfully receive it.
Completely. Absolutely. And to be able to be a part of the conversation, I think is huge. And if we could respect all parties of the conversation and say, okay, these are just people having a conversation. Nobody's evil or good. Right. No one's bad or, in that sense. It's just, let me consider this. Let me consider this. So in light of that, in this conversation about quiet quitting, I've tried to listen to the other quote unquote other side, because I have a natural propensity to align with, what was shared on the show from your perspective, from Dr. Phil's perspective. But I found myself sitting there listening to the show going, okay, let me hear what these folks are saying, the
right. Listening
advocates
to
of
that
right,
undertone. Yes.
yeah, what are they actually saying? So here's my perception. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. What I was hearing from this other side is I have to take care of myself because I don't feel supported. And I have, it's kind of this idea of like when you get on an airplane and the folks are saying, hey, when you get that message in the beginning, they're like, make sure you put on your own mask before you try to help others put on their mask. Right. And what I'm hearing is the sense of my boundaries, like we're so stretched and we feel completely overwhelmed or burnt out that I have to protect my boundaries and I have to make sure that my needs are being cared for, which is a very healthy principle to have, to make sure your needs are, making sure you're getting good sleep, making sure you're getting good nutrition in your diet, making sure you're having a good inner life. I think those are all very important boundaries to protect in a person's life. What I heard from that other side of folks was people who are trying to say, that's what we want to access. We feel like that's important. And so often people who are living in survival mode are just working all kind of hours and they're not able to have boundaries with their work. That's the truth of what I was hearing them say. I think they were missing some points there, coming at it from a disempowered angle, but that's the truth. What is your thoughts on that?
I was noticing even the difference in energy. And to share with you, even behind the scenes, before the cameras came on, we're all sitting there and waiting for the show to start. And the producers say, you cannot discuss the show until the show starts. So the person next to you, nothing. You make small talk. What was interesting on the side I was sitting on with the other gentleman, Brent Wilsey, and then I had his son, Chase Wilsey, next to me, and they own their own business. And then he had his fiance next to him. We were having a ball. We were laughing, getting to know each other. We were lighthearted. We were complimenting each other because we couldn't talk about the topic. On the other side, they looked angry and uncomfortable. They were already poised for a fight. There was a different energy right across from me in the other chairs. I never saw them engaging, interacting, just as, hey, let's get to know each other. We were having way too much fun on our side of the room. And then the cameras went on. We went into the hot topic. But even the energy that they were carrying was already coming in so ready to fight, oppressed, buried down in this anxiety or whatever it is they're going through. And those of us sitting on my side, we've had hardships. We've had to build. We've had to fight. We've worked long hours. I've lost everything. I could have the same right, if you want to say, to be sitting in my chair, angry and blaming the world for the things that I've walked through. But we were having a ball. So for me to sit there and even notice that we can create an environment. They created an environment for fighting, and I was trying to create an environment for a nice, lively discussion and maybe bring in some hope. And I think that's where the giant clash took place.
Wow. Amazing.
And I think what you saw on camera was them witnessing us having joy, and it actually fueled the fire.
It kind of triggered.
They thought we were just happy and rich and just had no care in the world. And what I am is I'm an overcomer. It means I've chosen to have joy in my life amidst hardships, but there was no way to verbalize that. And it fueled their fire. I guarantee it.
Well, that is such an important insight to have. Okay. Because energy, I always say energy doesn't lie, right? Like we can fool ourselves or whatever, but the energy speaks for itself. And so when the energy feels like a victim, like oppressed, like there's no opportunity, then that is going to become a very combative energy. And then that's going to create more obstacles. Again, the principle is what you resist persists. So if you're in resistance mode to life's not going to work for you. It's like, no, you can go to the beach and there can be some great waves. The people who enjoy the waves are the ones who learn how to ride them, which we call them surfers, right? But if you don't learn to ride the waves, they'll pummel you. Like that's how it works.
Right.
And life is this way. Life is, if we choose to see it as oppositional, then we'll get pummeled by it, because you're not going to win against life, nor should we. Right. But if we can understand that life is actually for you, and there's an opportunity that exists in every wave that comes up, then you can learn to ride them. And then it's much more fun, and people do it for fun.
So much more fun, because you can bounce back and find the fun again. It doesn't mean I don't have pain or crying or situations or family circumstances and job losses and all the other things that other people have, and death and disease and the things that take place. But rebuilding and finding the joy. What lessons did I learn from that pain? Where do I take that into what I'm doing today? And how can I actually find more opportunities for joy? Because now that I feel the joy deeper because I understand deeper pain. If I was just didn't have either, there would be a middle ground to that. But I love that I've had the two extremes that allow me to feel both of those and then choose the times that I put resistance. There's not one example that ever served me. It never had a positive outcome. So, well, what don't I want positive outcomes? Well, then why don't I choose to just think positive, to find the best even in what I'm doing, to create opportunities. And even what I shared on the show, that some of my worst jobs opened up opportunities for some of the best things that I've been able to do. I had a job that I worked for somebody that was not nice. The boss I had was not a nice person. And I still showed up happy, loved what I did, even though I had to deal with a person that was causing obstacles. And I eventually ended up leaving that company to go somewhere else. A year after, I get a phone call from a former coworker in that job that was miserable, that was observing and watching me and got to know me, enjoy in a job that was miserable, and referred me to the job that opened the door for me to be a TV host on a national show for 5 years.
Yeah. My gosh.
If I had had a bad attitude or done quiet quitting work at the job because my boss wasn't treating me well, would I have been able to go and be referred into the TV show? No. And I look back and go, well, it's one of those where you go, gosh, I'm glad I chose to do the right thing, even though it didn't make sense. Gosh, I'm just glad I did the right thing. And sometimes we do the right thing and we'll never see a result of it. But the fact that we sleep well, that we did the right thing. My daughter, for an example, this week, she has a wonderful job with a small business, and she had asked for a day off for an important family gathering she needed to go to. And so they allowed it. They're really tight on people on Saturdays. It's hard for her to get a Saturday off, but they went ahead and gave it to her. Well, then the party got canceled. And I'm so proud of her that she reached out to them right away and said, hey, my event got canceled. I'm available to work. Now, she didn't have to do that. She could have just kept the day off.
That's beautiful.
A quiet quitting would have kept the day off. Look, I got a free day off. Integrity says, I'm going to make myself available. Now, they may still tell her she doesn't need to go in. They may say, gosh, thank you so much. We really need you. But doing that right thing could make a tremendous difference for the rest of her life. Learning those habits will accelerate her in life.
Absolutely. That's so good. And I think when you approach life with an understanding that every moment is it's like a flower, it unfolds, right? There's an unfolding. And when you unfold it, there's a whole new dimension there. But if you approach life as there's nothing here, there's no opportunities here, it's just the same old, and then you begin to despise life, which I call that death.
It is
right?
death.
Because if we're not approaching life as a miracle, that this moment is not a miracle, then what are you doing here? What are we doing?
Just give up. That's it.
And
that's all that's left.
Yeah. And if we want to get ahead to the next thing, well, we know where we're all headed, right? Eventually, if we keep getting ahead, where is it going to lead us? There's this thing called the grave, right? We're all headed there.
Yep.
So my thing is like, are you in a hurry to get there?
And you want to get there miserably along the way?
Let's just be here in this moment and unpack it, because it's a gift. It's like one of those Russian little dolls that you just open and there's another doll inside of it. There's another doll inside. It's literally like that. And it's a miracle. And how you approach this moment really does lead you somewhere. And you're a living demonstration of that. And again, you didn't know this is going to lead to this, which is going to lead to this. But if you just know it up front, it always leads us. We don't have to worry about getting left behind, because life is moving. It's like a river. It'll take you where it's going. If you can participate with it, it'll take you where you want to go. If you resist it, it'll take you where you don't want to go.
Yes.
And that's the key here. One of the things I appreciated about Dr. Phil on the show, and he said it was just like, yeah, there we go. He said, my perception of you guys, and he was speaking to the quiet quitting folks. He said, is that you haven't found a passion.
Right.
And I think that was like, there it is right there, right? You haven't found a passion. Now, I think the misnomer is people have to think, well, I have to be passionate about this job. And just like the guy,
that was a lot of the comments. I'm not going to be
work.
passionate about this job. It's a job I don't like. I'm in a packing company. Why am I going to be passionate about that? That was
I'm
a lot.
Stocking shelves in a grocery store.
Yes.
I'm blah, blah, blah. I totally get that. And what I like to tell people in that setting is, and I love what you have to say, is like, well, if you're an aspiring actor, this is a great time to act. You can act like you want to be here. You can do really well in this job. You can literally practice your skills that you're trying to win your life for. But I always tell people, if you don't have a passion, number one, there's an overall, people talk about purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. And I get that. I understand that idea. My understanding is that we all do have a niche that we're here to do. And when you move into that niche, it feels like, yes, this is my thing. This is what I'm here to do. And most people are miserable because they're like, I haven't found that yet. But I'll say, it's okay. It's okay. How will you find it?
Right. I was just going to say, how will you find it?
How will you find it? It's by paying attention to the moment. Because if you pay enough attention to this, let's say I'm in a job I hate. I don't like this. I'm in a warehouse. I'm this. There's nothing passionate here. You're not paying close enough attention then. I would say you're not paying attention. Pay closer attention. Find where the spark is. There's a spark there. It may not be in everything you're doing, but there's something you're doing that causes a spark, that causes you to come alive. Maybe it's a certain task you're doing every day that you like more than this other task.
Realize you're very organized. Like, wow, I do great at creating spreadsheets. And I didn't realize that I really do love organizing details. I don't like this company, but I'm really good at this, or I'm really good at creating marketing products. I don't like this company I'm marketing for, but I'm really good with creating these graphics. This is a passion.
Totally. I used to be a corrections officer. I worked in a prison for almost 5 years as a corrections officer. I hated the job. I literally, when I worked in that job, I dreaded, I had anxiety, all these things. But I discovered by showing up to work every day, one of the things I discovered was there's a lot of aspects about this job I don't like, but one of the things I really liked was the observation of human behavior. I started to observe these people, and I started to hear their stories and get to know them. And I realized, oh my goodness, this part of their story, which they would share with you, I can totally see how it led to this behavior, which led them, behind bars.
And look what you do now. You identified it. Oh, it's brilliant.
And this was like years ago. I was working this job. I thought this is a dead end job. I'm just going to prison every day for a paycheck, 8 hours a day. This is miserable. It was training. And I could not be in this position here now without that job. And I know the same is true of your life, right? Everything you've done.
Everything was training.
So if we quit on that training, quiet quit on that training.
Mm-hmm. Oh, powerful.
We're missing it. Totally. So
and the only person we're hurting at the end of the day is ourselves and those around us that we love. And those around us that we love, that maybe we're responsible for bringing, for supporting them, or being a support to them, or being a mentor to nieces or nephews even, or anything. If you're hurting yourself and those around you by choosing quiet quitting, because I guarantee if they're quiet quitting at work, they're quiet quitting in the other areas of their life. And Dr. Phil pointed that out as well.
Yes. Such an important point.
Because it's behaviors and habits.
Yeah. And how you do one thing is typically how you do everything. There's a thread in that.
Imagine at home in their marriage. Nope, not my day to take out the trash. It's yours.
Sorry.
We agreed on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's Tuesday, so I'm not doing it.
and that's contractual, right? So when we do that, what we're saying is, I'm really in a contractual relationship with you versus a present relationship with you.
Yes.
And that's a big deal. Like, so what if, and basically, ultimately, it's the relationship we have with ourselves, right? Am I just in this? And I tell people when they do coaching, eventually it's like, yeah, we kind of hooked you saying, but eventually, like, when we're done coaching, the practices we learned in coaching, are you going to keep doing them? Or are you going to be done? Because if you keep doing them, it's because you're committed to yourself. And if you stop doing it, it's because the contract is over.
I tell my clients the same thing. The things I'm teaching you, even in being more eloquent in your speaking, confident on camera, these are going to go into your personal life all the way. I will be changing the way you see your language and your body language for the rest of your life.
So good. That's so good.
Your family will thank me. No more scowling.
Right.
Do you ever see people that you can tell they've had a hard life? With how they carry their face.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be that. I've had an eclectic mix of life. I've had circumstances that I did not know were going to be a part of my life. But boy, I sure hope my face never shows it, because my heart doesn't show it. And when people compliment me, I'm going to be 50 years old in a couple of weeks. And they're like, wow, you look amazing. Well, hopefully it's because I choose to exude joy in my life, because I could look really tethered. I could look weathered and tethered had I chosen to.
Absolutely. No, that's incredible. And I think when people see your youthful appearance and they can say, oh, that's just your genes. Like, no, it's choice.
No.
It's choice. It's where we choose to put our energy, and our body will reflect it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a kind of, it can be it's the truth. It's how it works. And well, and that brings to the final point I kind of want to bring up here is this idea of hard work. Because when you look at somebody, like you're mentioning, like you can look at somebody who can look like, oh my gosh, man, they've been through a hard life. We say that their body can reflect it, or your body can reflect a life of ease. But when I say ease, I don't mean privilege like that. I mean non-resistance, which is an internal state of being, right? And so I wrote there's a chapter in my book, Living for Living, that's called The Hard Work Myth. And I make the point that the hard work myth has led to a lot of problems. The idea that, and what I mean, and it's meant to be a kind of a controversial chapter here, because people will say, well, wait, you're saying I don't have to work hard to get ahead in life? And I would say, well, I understand what we mean by work hard, but I was like, I want to change the language around it a little bit. Hard work, typically, I think what people mean by it is committed, totally involved. I said, yes, now that's essential to success. Mm-hmm. You must be committed to what you're doing. You must be totally involved in what you're doing.
Yes, dedication.
But what makes it hard or not has to result. If it's hard, it's because I think something that Dr. Phil said was that you haven't found your passion.
Right.
So therefore it feels like a grind. And to me, that's about perception. Passion, finding your passion isn't about what you're doing. It's about, how do I perceive what I'm doing in this moment? But if you can perceive your passion, understand that, like if I could go back, 20 years or whatever, however long ago it was when I worked in the prison, and I could say, you are being trained for your dream job in this moment. This is an essential part of your dream job. I would have approached it much differently. Right. And I don't think I would have been filled with such dread and anxiety going to work every day.
And we're trying to, with these amazing tools of even you having this podcast, this information can get to people a lot sooner. We didn't have these tools when we were going through it. Podcasting didn't exist. You'd listen to the radio. We didn't have internet when I started working. So
right.
We have tools now that we can help people have these perspectives so much sooner. It breaks my heart when they're rejecting this type of understanding, that they could flip the switch of going, wow, maybe I'm being trained. Maybe this is part of my being tooled. Maybe this is where I will find that passion, because it's there.
Absolutely.
It could be, you might be passionate about math and realize the job you're doing in accounting at that company, you excel at math. Then someday you're going to be doing something that's really helping make a difference with your math skills. And this was your training.
Totally. And I don't think work has to be hard. I think it needs to be involved and committed, but hard is up to you. It's up to you how you're perceiving what you're doing. So I just kind of wanted to make that point, but I want the listeners who are listening to this conversation, I would first of all just want to direct you, if you haven't listened to the first podcast episode I had with Amy just a few weeks ago, it's I can't remember exactly at the moment the episode number, but just go back and look for my interview with Amy Scruggs. I would encourage you to listen to that episode, because you're going to hear more of the story of where Amy has come from, because you'll get why.
And then you won't hate me when you see the Dr. Phil clip.
Totally. But I also really feel like people should go and watch the
just Google, episode. Just go to YouTube and put in Dr. Phil Quiet Quitting. Believe me, you won't miss it. It'll be right there.
Totally. And people on my email listserv, I'll put the link in there so people can watch it and hear that perspective, because it's a really important topic today that we're having. And I thought you did fabulous on the show. I really did. I mean, I think you came across well, and what you intended to communicate was very important, and it came across. I mean, you have a gift for media, so it's perfect. So, and I'm sorry about what you're going through, but I'm glad
it's well, again, what lessons do I take from it? Do I choose to have these attached to me, or do I choose to have empathy then for our world or for people, or allow me to have perspective that I can still use in my coaching, that I can use in the next speaking that I do, or the next appearance on a Dr. Phil type show? It brings me awareness, and with awareness comes the tools that I need to succeed in what my passion is. And that's to reach people, to help make a difference, to bring my best self out there every day to those that I'm with. And what I did appreciate was the professionals like yourself and those that I'm in circles with all said, wow, thanks for saying it. Great job. And I guess I realized I had been in a bubble of surrounding myself with really great people with great perspectives that are moving forward in life and making a difference in others' lives. And what this did was it peeked through that opening of a door that I saw into what so many are suffering and going through, and the training they haven't done within themselves or opportunities they're missing for themselves. So all I took out of it was a heartbreak for them, not something that was being done to me, because I didn't attach myself to any of it at all.
Absolutely. Well, I think your voice is so important and needed in the world, and I'm glad your voice is out there and it's continuing to get out there. And so I feel gratitude for that, especially in these conversations. This is your expertise, and it's needed. So thank you, and thank you for being a guest on the show again.
Anytime. There's much things to discuss.
Absolutely. Any last words before we sign off here today?
No, I'm just so grateful for your show. I catch your other episodes as well, and I've seen the other guests you have. It's just first class. So if this is your first time listening to this show, go back and check out his library of shows, because you will be inspired and empowered, and it could actually change your life. And it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm bringing any resources I can to help support your show as well, because we need this out there. And thank you so much.
Of course. Well, appreciate you. That's so gracious and kind of you to say. And guys, thank you for listening to this episode. As always, I'm always curious about your thoughts and comments, and would love to keep the dialogue going. So feel free to shoot me an email or reach out via social media. Until next time, guys, take care. Thank you again for being on the show.